Well, now that the worst of the year is out of the way, I could finally reward myself by talking about my favorite movies of 2022. I will say that despite 2022 sucking on a personal level for me, just in general, this has been, for the most part, a damn good year for movies. This is to the point where I had never had so much trouble listing some of my favorites since there are just too many good ones. In fact, I had to make this a top 15 instead of a top 10. Keep in mind, though I have seen a lot of films this year, in fact, I've seen a grand total of 82 films released in 2022, I have not seen literally every single great movie that came out in 2022. I was unfortunately unable to see Aftersun, Women Talking, Living, or The Sun. I will see those movies eventually, but I haven't seen them as of now. Though I still have more than enough great films to fill this list, as well as some honorable mentions. With all that out of the way, let's get started. I have never seen any Tollywood film before this, and I will say this film surprised me. Sure, the film has some pacing issues and it didn't need to be 3 hours long. However, what makes this film so good was the friendship between the two main leads, Raju and Bheem. It takes place during the 1920s during the time of the British Raj. These are two guys on opposing sides not realizing that they're on a secret mission to sabotage the other. The songs are a lot of fun. I still can't get Nachu Nachu out of my head. It's that catchy. It's also very action-packed. There's a scene where Raju is able to take down an entire crowd all by himself. Now that is badass. It's funny, action-packed, a fun time, and I highly recommend it. Sorry, Zach, I know you hate this movie, but I really enjoyed Turning Red. This film is very cute and very clever with its commentary about growing up and understanding the value of puberty. The characters are also a lot of fun, especially with Melee and her friends. I also love the dynamic between Melee and her mother. They're on two different ends of the world where Melee wants to act like a normal teenager, while the mother wants her to be more traditional and her perfect child forever. I know some people will point out that the writing and characters feel too modern and too cool for school, but keep in mind, that's how teenagers act at that age. Teenage girls like dancing. They like boy bands. Not all of them, but a lot did, especially in 2002, which is what year this film takes place in. Believe me, I was Melee's age in 2002, and I've seen girls do it when I was in middle school. I can confirm that. The animation is wonderful, the characters are likable, and the commentary is very clever. It may not be my favorite Pixar film, but I will certainly take it over Lightyear or Strange World.
Perfect little May. But maybe I like this new me.
Mama's girls. It's gonna be me.
Although Black Panther Wakanda Forever came very close to being my favorite comic book movie, in the end, it still couldn't beat Matt Reeves' The Batman. Now, I do have some issues with it from preventing it from being higher on the list, like maybe some plot holes and some silly and goofy moments.
Begging for attention. You're gonna die alone. No. A nobody. No.
However, I can't deny it's still a fun time at the movies. Robert Pattinson does a really good job playing Batman. Although Michael Keaton is still my definitive Batman, Pattinson did a really good job portraying the character. This film is such a blast to watch with the story and its themes. The action is very intense and keeps you on the edge of your seat. Even though it didn't make my top 10, it is still my favorite comic book film of the year.
I got you! I got you!
This is a movie I've been hearing so many good things about, and by the tail end of 2022, I was doing my best to watch as many good movies as possible to see what could still make my best of the year list. I am so happy I was able to watch Tar. This movie is wonderful. Cate Blanchett did an amazing job as Lydia Tarr, a great composer who eventually met her downfall. And if she doesn't get nominated for her performance, I will probably slap somebody who works at the Oscars. I also like its commentary on cancel culture and the hashtag #MeToo movement. It shows when a famous person meets controversy, it's revealed to the public it leads to serious consequences. It also tells that when a controversy happens to a great artist, it's best to separate the art from the artist. Don't let the artist change your views of the art they made. This film is wonderfully shot, well acted, and a well-deserving placement on this list. After the disaster that was The Predator from 2018, you would think there's no hope for this franchise. Well, thankfully, that's not the case with Prey. This film was a blast to watch. The Predator has never looked this intimidating before. Hell, there is a scene where the Predator kills a giant grizzly bear, holds it up, and drinks its blood raining down. How much more badass can you get with that? The acting is solid, especially from our two main leads. Amber Midthunder and Dakota Beavers did a great job, and they both have excellent chemistry as brother and sister Tabe and Naru. Speaking of which, Naru is a badass. She went from this inexperienced hunter to a badass female protagonist at the end. Take note, Alex Garland. This is how you do female empowerment the right way. My only issue is that some of the CGI could have used more work, especially on the other animals in the forest. Other than that, this film is a fun time and an awesome watch if you have a Hulu subscription. I would still take Predator 2 as my favorite Predator film, but this is a strong contender.
Whatever did this, I can kill it.
I wasn't sure what to expect with this one. I heard some really good things about it, so I decided to check it out on Netflix. And let me tell you, I am so happy that I did. This film does a great job of exploring the dilemma about how the high capitalism standard is causing people to resort to performing illegal activities just to keep their head above water. As someone who has been struggling financially in the past with being laid off a few years ago and COVID prevented me from getting a job I wanted, I understand what the main character is going through with the rent money and credit card expenses and just other financial loans that needed to be paid off during that time. No, I did not do anything illegal or work for a scamming company like the main character did, but I still understand the desperation to survive. Aubrey Plaza does a great job as Emily. It has great commentary, great characters, and is worthy of being in the top 15.
From you until you make the goddamn rules yourself. Wait.
You know what my mistake really was? I didn't go far enough.
I'm pretty sure most of you have never even heard of this film, but Pompo the Cinephile is an underrated anime film. To those who have seen this film, you might be wondering, but Rob, Pompo came out in 2021, so it shouldn't count. Yes, but only in Japan. It got an international release in spring of 2022, so it counts. Plus, if The Black Phone and Marcel the Shell with Shoes On count as 2022 releases, which they both got a 2021 release at film festivals, this should count too. Also, my list, bitches. Coming from someone who is a big anime fan as well as a movie lover, this is a perfect combination of the two. The characters are very likable and sometimes even relatable. This film is about a first-time director who has a passion for filmmaking and finally gets his big break when an exaggerated film producer, Pompo, allows him to direct the next film she wrote the script for. It shows the steps and difficulties of becoming a filmmaker. It tells the story in a good balance between down-to-earth and over-the-top anime way. With the exception of the underwhelming Babylon, 2022 has been a great year for movies about filmmaking. Please give this film a shot. You won't regret it.
I will not abandon my dreams.
This is all I have. My art.
Ah! This is what's wrong with you film buffs.
I'm pretty sure this would be higher on most people's best of the year list, and I really don't blame them. Now, I'm one of those people that considers the first Top Gun movie a fun ride, but nothing more than that. I don't consider it an 80s classic like a lot of people do, but it did have some decent characters and a lot of fun aerial dogfights. Its sequel, on the other hand, I can consider miles better than the original. The acting all around is really good from everyone. Tom Cruise and Miles Teller do great as Maverick and Rooster, aka the son of Goose, respectively, and they both have excellent chemistry together. Maverick wants to act like a father figure to his friend's son, while Rooster continues to show resistance toward him and continues blaming him for his father's death in the first film. The action scenes had me on the edge of my seat. I think the aerial dogfight scenes were even better here than in the first, and I thought the aerial dogfights were very cool in the first. Val Kilmer does great as always as Iceman. Without spoiling anything, the scene between Iceman and Maverick will have you in tears by the end. This film is just an excellent time. I highly recommend it, even if you didn't care for the first one. You might be surprised. Now, if you've seen my review for this film, this shouldn't be a surprise to you. As a massive Sonic the Hedgehog fan, this is a movie I've always wanted to see. Sure, it may have some issues like an unnecessary side plot and a couple of jokes that don't land. However, what really stood out for me was how well Jeff Fowler and the crew understand the source material. They nailed it with the characters and the lore. Sonic is the wisecracking smart aleck that we know from the games. Eggman is the over-the-top villain. Tails is Sonic's buddy that is a tech genius, and Knuckles is the brawn over brains character. This team obviously took inspiration from Sonic the Hedgehog 2, 3, and Sonic and Knuckles. Unlike many directors who state that they are fans of the original source material, I'm looking at you, Rob Zombie, this team proves that they are fans of this franchise. It's a rare occurrence where a team respects its fans, which is something a lot of video game movies don't do. Hell, even a lot of comic book films don't get this. I'm looking at you, Taika Waititi. If you want more detail, check it out on my review. It's funny, action-packed, and one of the films I had the most fun watching at the theater. Bring on the sequel, and Paramount, you better get Keanu Reeves to voice Shadow or us fans will riot.
Return to sender! Face it. You're never going to get my power.
Do I look like I need your power?
I don't think I've been so terrified with the movie in so long. The Black Phone, in my opinion, is the scariest film I have seen all year. Ethan Hawke gives a very chilling performance as the Grabber. He makes you feel uneasy whenever his presence is on screen. The other performances were great as well. Mason Thames and Madeline McGraw do great as the two kids, Finney and Gwen Blake, respectively. Child actors usually tend to be annoying, but these two pull off their performances and act like real kids in that situation. The creepy atmosphere always had me on the edge of my seat. Also, while this film does use jump scares, it knows how to use them properly without littering the film with nothing but jump scares, like some other films I know that came out this year. This film also takes inspiration from classic Stephen King stories, which makes sense as the director, Scott Derrickson, is the son of the master of horror Stephen King himself. If you were disappointed in some of the other horror films released this year, and I don't blame you, this film feels like a breath of fresh air for you. Please give this film a watch. This is a film I was sadly not able to see in theaters since I was out of town that weekend for a convention and it was only playing for 1 week. However, I was able to rent the film on Vudu and I am so glad I was able to check this film out. This is such a wonderful film. It's a heartwarming tale about a lone shelf that is only 1 inch long that lives with his grandmother at an Airbnb house, and the rest of his family was taken away. The stop motion is great in this film, and it blends well with the live action portion of the film. You really feel like this thing is alive. Jenny Slate did a fantastic job voicing Marcella. It plays like a mockumentary where it explores the shell's life with the guy renting the house recording everything, and both have wonderful chemistry together. Also, without spoiling what happens at the end, you will be in tears by the end. I guarantee it. It may not be my favorite A24 film, trust me, we'll get to that soon enough, but it is definitely worth checking out.
All with shoes on.
Whoa.
You are beautiful.
There must be so many others like me.
I do love Steven Spielberg's work. He doesn't always knock it out of the park for me, but when his movies are great, they can blow you away, and his new film, The Fabelmans, is no exception. This is a great telling of Steven Spielberg's childhood and his love for filmmaking through the eyes of a fictional character. Just like with Pompo and another film you will see later on this list, it is a love letter to filmmaking. The acting from everyone is great, including Gabriel LaBelle, Paul Dano, Michelle Williams, and many more. Hell, even Seth Rogen, who I'm not a big fan of since he just seems to play the same stoner jokester in his comedies, blew me away with this performance. I also like the progress on how Samuel Fabelmans first became interested in his passion for filmmaking and ends with his first break. There are so many heartbreaking moments for me, like where Sammy discovers the secret affair between his mother and his uncle. You feel for this character and understand the struggles he's been going through. This may not be my number 1 favorite Steven Spielberg movie that probably would go to either Jaws or Hook, but I wouldn't be surprised if this was among my top 10 favorites of his.
What was your favorite part?
Without a doubt, my favorite film of 2022 about the art of filmmaking. I love the other 2 Clerks movies, but this one actually might be my favorite in the whole trilogy. Not only is it a love letter to filmmaking, but it's also a love letter to fans of these movies. The friendship between Dante and Randall has never been so powerful before. This was the heart of the film for me. We have been following these 2 guys since 1994. And you could tell that Brian O'Halloran and Jeff Anderson have excellent chemistry together. The humor had me cracking up all the way through. I couldn't stop laughing at the scenes where Elias went from a born-again Christian to a born-again Satanist. Also, just like with the Marcel the Shell with shoes on, the ending will bring you to tears. If you're not at least getting teary-eyed by the end, then I'm just gonna assume you're a robot in disguise. Fun fact, I had to drive an hour to see this movie, and despite the amount of gas I used in my car, the drive was totally worth it. I highly recommend this film, especially if you're a fan of the 2 previous movies.
Take off your pants!
What the hell is this?
I added a scene where you get shot.
I'm not letting you kill me off in the 3rd act.
What if there's a sequel?
A sequel? What am I, a hack?
If you have seen my top 10 worst films of 2022 video or our Cool Kids live stream where we talked about the worst films we've seen in 2022, you know that I put the live action Disney remake of Pinocchio at number 2 on my worst of the year list. Funny enough, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio is at number 2 on my best of the year list, and that is just a coincidence. I swear it's not intentional. This has been a passion project for Del Toro since 2008, and it paid off beautifully. The stop motion is wonderful. The movements are great, and even the designs of the characters are great, which were inspired by the illustrations of Chris Grimley's 2002 edition of the original 1883 novel. Also, while yes, it is different from the novel and the 40s Disney classic, it's not trying to copy what the original did, which is why it worked here and failed with the Disney live-action remake. Some of the themes of the original are still there, like obedience, but they're not the main focus. It feels like it's about Pinocchio understanding the meaning of life and mortality. Sure, he doesn't become a real boy in the end, but by giving up his immortality to save the ones he loves, means he understands that by making a sacrifice for others, he feels more of a real boy. It also explores other themes like fascism. The Pleasure Island scene has been replaced with a military camp for young boys, and it's a good commentary about the hardships of war. It also works as a great character study for Geppetto. Despite the film being called Pinocchio, it feels more like Geppetto's story, overcoming grief and letting him learn to be a father once again. You understand the heartbreak he goes through after losing his son and creating Pinocchio while drunk. He realized that by the end, Pinocchio is as real of a son as the one he once had. I cannot praise this film enough. I highly recommend checking it out.
Come back to me.
Pinocchio! Life is such a wonderful gift.
Now, before I get to my favorite film of 2022, let me state that even doing a top 15 was very difficult to do, which means I had to make sacrifices and great films didn't make the cut. So, I want to mention some movies that were not on my top 15, but are still worth checking out. They include, in no order, With all that out of the way, let's jump right into my favorite film of 2022. This film gave me so much. This film was the definition of creative and interesting. Unfortunately, I was unable to see it in theaters, but I was able to rent it when it became available to rent on Vudu, and I am so glad I was able to check this one out. The characters are very likable, the performances are solid, especially from Michelle Yeoh and Jamie Lee Curtis, The visuals are breathtaking, the action scenes are fun, the cinematography is excellent, and the worlds are very unique and creative. Even though I enjoyed Multiverse of Madness for what it is, I think this film did the multiverse storyline a lot better than that film did. Also, unlike a lot of films today, this film delivers its messages and themes in a show don't tell way. The message is that you are important to someone in every single universe that you exist in. It shows you the message rather than just telling the message that a lot of films don't understand. That is the point of visual media. Show, don't tell. I don't want to give too much away about this film because this is a film I really want you to see, and just talking about him in great detail would require spoilers, and I don't want to spoil this film for you. All I gotta say is you really have to check this one out. This is easily my favorite A24 film to date, and my favorite film of 2022. That is all for my favorite films of 2022. Comment down below what your favorite films of 2022 are. I really want to know. Thank you all for watching and supporting me, and until next time, have a good day.